You could join us at this Focus Informational session. You are in great hands with Shalia Ford and Kayla Dix and the many alums that you'll be getting an opportunity to meet today. My name is Yemi Akande Barch. I'm President and CEO of Focus St. Louis. I've been with the organization a little bit over 9 years. And every time I think of those 9 years, I said, that feels like yesterday. But Focus is a great organization. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are the region's premier civic leadership organization. We educate leaders, we connect them to each other, and they go on to be catalysts for change in our community. And you'll get to meet some of those change makers in a little bit. But that said, we have 10,000 plus alums. 75% of those alums still reside in town. I like to say that there isn't anywhere that you will go that you will probably not, run into. You will definitely run into a Focus alums. So I always have to be on my best behavior. And, I tell my husband when I'm out and about town, I said, okay, great. Let me just put on lipstick because I could find myself talking issue education at a moment's notice. So Shalia has been running the program for quite some time now. I feel like you officially took over after the first of the year, but as an alum of the program, you've always been involved since you've been here at Focus in some way or capacity or facilitating the sessions. And I love the fact that you all have, pins of the butterfly, that at the end of the session, that's something that you have to bring together community, but to also keep on the reflection of that entire experience. So Shalia, I'm curious to see whether it's going to be butterfly with the existing class or you're going to move on to something else. You know how to find them. But that said, this is a great program. It's a transformative program. It's a program that we are finding, and Shalia is finding, that it's an opportunity for resiliency in the women that are going through the program. I tell anyone and everyone who's gone through our program that perhaps the position that you're in now is not going to be the position that you'll find yourself in after this program has concluded, because you find yourself asking questions in a different manner than you've done before. You also find yourself exploring through the different interviews with a cross-section of women leaders in our community that just makes you rethink where you are in terms of whether you're saying, okay, this is it, this is where I need to be, or there's a whole lot of different world out there that my skills, given the assessment that you go through in the class, are better suited to. So it's not that I have a crystal ball or anything like that, but it's a transformative experience that gets you in community with other like-minded women, asking questions, challenging yourselves, experimenting on how you come across, how you show up in a room, and how you create a different board of directors. And I always say it's very beneficial for individuals to have a different board of directors than what they came into the program with. And those may be some of the people in your current class when you do get in, or it could be connecting with many of the leaders that you'll meet with. So Shalia at the top of this week shared with me the agenda for the October session, and I just went, oh my goodness. I'm going to clear my calendar that day because I want to be in community to hear from these fantastic women about what their experience has been across sectors. And I won't give a preview in case Shalia just wants to name drop of who some of the people are, but they are excellent women that we have all seen publicly. And sometimes they're really unsung heroes that you had no idea that this is the work that they've been doing in community to lift up our community, but also more importantly, and in some cases, to lift up institutions. And one of the things I love about this program is the fact that because of the intimacy of what happens when you're in community with a group of like-minded women, our panelists are very candid, and they share with you how they've been successful, and they share with you opportunities where they've been challenged, or in some cases they've failed, and how they're leveling up to take them to the next level. And that, for me, as the president and CEO of Focus St. Louis, when I've hopped into the sessions, I'm always in a continuous improvement, continuous learning process that I'm always just excited to continue to have takeaways that helps me sharpen and expand my toolkit. So you'll be hearing from Shayla, you'll be hearing from Kayla, you'll be hearing from Candace, all the women, Mary, later on today, or later on during the session, about how they're showing up and how they continue to stay engaged in life after focus. And I like to say life within focus, because once you're signed up with focus, you're forever a focus alum in terms of what you do. So glad that you're here. We look forward to getting to know you. Please connect with the women as you go into the breakout rooms on LinkedIn. Connect with one of the individuals that I would say she is a voracious, active LinkedIn person. It is Shayla on LinkedIn. I don't know how you do it, but I'm always excited because she's always sending me materials that get us to look around the corner on issues and challenges in the region, which is helpful for me. So connect with each other, connect with Shayla and all the women that you're about to meet, connect with me. I post things occasionally that may be of interest to you, and connect with Focus. So glad you're here. Thank you for inviting me, Shayla, and back to you.
All right. Thank you, Yami. We're always glad to have you. And I think it's so important, especially in these times where so much has happened during the pandemic and happened to women in particular. So to see our leader, to see my leader take time out of her day to come and say hello is important, because women in leadership is about helping to propel you to the place that you want to be. And like she said, sometimes you're going to pivot. Sometimes you're going to do something a little different with your life, because as you take a pause and decide to reflect on where you are, where you want to be, and what is it going to take you to get to that next step, we're here to provide that space and place, as well as the community to do it. So I'm going to really quickly just share a couple of slides before, and I'm queuing up my roundtable. Share a couple of slides with you, just some pieces of information that might be helpful. And then I am going to basically moderate a quick interview with our alumna, and then we'll open it up for your questions. So just be thinking about what is a burning question that maybe you have that we can start off with. So you see the agenda. Like I said, we're going to have some testimony, really just some conversation, do some Q&A, do that micro experience, and then let you know when are some important dates and how you can contact me or Kayla or someone else. Our organization, or Women in Leadership, is experiencing or celebrating their 40th year this year. And so we've been around for a number of years, and we've had the opportunity to engage women from across sectors intergenerationally who are doing some of the greatest work, and sometimes out front, in the public eye, and sometimes behind the scene, but nonetheless, very important work. And so we want you to understand who you are as a leader. So leading yourself, how do you lead in community? By meeting women in community, in the field, doing the work, and then really thinking about what will be your contribution to community. How can you partner with the folks in your cohort, as well as members in the community, on the issues that are important, the things that you value? We offer 7 seminar days, 3 are field days, which is basically the community becomes our classroom, and we get to meet some fabulous women. So Yami referred to our October field day. Yes, I've got some big names on there. It is our public sector day, if that gives you any indication. And we do get to interview with our first African-American mayor, Tashara Jones. We also have individuals that are leading the public library. We have someone who is a lieutenant colonel in the St. Louis Police Department. We have someone who is one of the city managers of one of our local municipalities. We're also going to have a DE&I, a diversity, equity, and inclusion roundtable on that day as well. And so we've got individuals like Emily Pitts, who was just named the diversity or chief diversity officer at Lindenwood. We have Nikki Roach, who is the special assistant to the president at St. Louis University, but also has her own radio show and her own organization. And we have someone, Lori Becker, who works with Starkloff Institute, and they focus on including people with different abilities in that DE&I work. And so we've just got great women, great interviews. What's wonderful is people say yes to Focus because many in our community are Focus alumni and supporters. And so it's always wonderful to have those days. Who should apply? You should apply. Why? If you are a woman who's looking to continue to level up in leadership, who is looking to gain a better understanding of our region. Maybe you grew up here and you're just like, but there's so much more. There always is so much more. Or maybe you're a transplant to our community and just trying to get like, what is St. Louis? What makes this region tick? It's a wonderful, beautiful region. And we get sometimes a bad rap. And sometimes we have challenges like everyone else does, but sometimes we forget to tell the best things about our region. And there's so many good things happening in St. Louis. And so it's just important if you're looking to contribute more, to grow as a leader, and to really think about how a particular issue that you want to work on could be changed with your help as a leader. That's part of who should apply. But you'll hear other reasons why. Our spring schedule is here and also on our campus for you to download. It is so important that you participate and engage fully in this process, like you show up and you're present. And so we want to give you those dates in advance so that when you decide to apply and you're offered the opportunity to participate, you already know in advance what that time commitment is and what it looks like. And so the benefits of the program, again, deeper understanding of our region. You have exposure to the most influential business and community and civic leaders. You have new tools in your own personal toolkit to help you personally, professionally, and civically to do the strategic thinking and to do the work that's important to you. And then you become part of this Focus family, this Focus network that is 10,000 plus alumni strong. And so that's an important piece too. And then again, just a greater sense of commitment to our region and the community and you making a meaningful contribution. I'm gonna stop sharing the slide. That was a really quick like commercial about who we are, what we do. But I think the best way for you to gain an understanding is for me to introduce our alumna who have joined us today. They've taken time out of their schedules because they thought it was so important for their voices to be heard and for them to share with you. So I want to welcome Katie McGovern. She is the CEO at the ALS Association St. Louis region. I would like to introduce you to Candace Carter Oliver. She is the CEO of Confluence Academies. I'd like to introduce you to Mary Fernandez, who is the operations specialist at Bayer. Kenyatta Holmes, who is the product manager at AB Mari North America. And so these wonderful women, my butterfly sisters, and yes, there's every group has something unique. So butterfly is not necessarily the thing for this group, but I do have something, and I'm not going to tell because I haven't told them yet what it will be. But thank you for being here. Oh, and Tara, she's here. Yay. Bring her on screen. Tara Beffa is the manager at Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. And so we're glad that you are, there you go. Hi, we're glad that you're here too. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just throw out a question. I'll probably direct the first one to someone, and then just like popcorn, jump in and respond. It won't necessarily be a speed round, but we do want to make sure that we allow time for questions of all of our guests. So I will start with this question. Kenyatta, why did you apply to Will?
So I know a few Will alums, as you say. Will is everywhere. And they just spoke so highly of the program, the organization. And I mean, the word that I kept hearing was life-changing. I was like, I want to change my life. So I decided to apply.
Okay. Katie, what about you? What did you hear? Or what made you decide I'm going to actually apply to this program?
You know, I had been thinking about the program or a program through Focus for a long time, and it was always like, I don't know, the time's not right. It's expensive. It's a time investment. But it's well worth it. And I knew all of that, but it was just a matter of committing and saying, okay, I'm going to actually, I'm going to do this. And so that what the tipping point was for me was that I had just stepped into this new role, a president CEO, or I was just about to actually, as we were beginning the program. I hadn't even started. And Dana Stock, which some of you may know from the Rome Group, if you're in the nonprofit space, she said, this might be the best time for you to do the program. So I'm like, there's no way this is going to work right now. It's going to be way too busy. I'm going to be overwhelmed. And she's like, I actually think this might be the best time, because it will allow you to intentionally focus on your leadership during a very, very busy year. And I thought, whoa, and she also is a Will alum, by the way. That's a really great perspective, and that's really motivating to me. And so I advocated to my boss at the time and said, I really want to do this. Can we figure out a way to split it or put in the budget or whatever it may be? And we were able to do it, and it just, and it all clicked. And so having those two pieces, somebody to give me the push and to lock myself in, to say it's from a financial commitment that I'm doing this, was really it. So if I can be that motivator for anybody in this room to say, this is your time, this is our time, right, ladies? I would be happy to do that for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Candace, what about you? Why did you apply to Will?
Yeah, I think my story is somewhat similar to Katie's. I really applied because at the time, I remember reverting to working from home, working remotely. And I thought, well, what can I do? Whenever I'm thrusted into change, I'll find myself kind of pushing more on the lever. What more can I do? How best can I use this time? And so I did. I said, I'm going to invest in myself. And I was searching through some things. I know some Will alum, and I said, I'm going to do it, So it was really looking at expanding. I as a CEO, always believe in continual development and learning. And, being a woman in leadership, I'm in many rooms oftentimes with the majority of men. I'm in rooms oftentimes with folks who don't share the same ethnicity as me. So, I'm a woman of color. And I really wanted to just, get in a space where I could have other women to help build me. I could then help in turn pour into them whatever they could perhaps learn from me. So I saw it as a space that I could gain as well as provide. And then again, just, really, wanting to be able to tell my story, but then what else can I add to my story? What else could I share that might help someone else? So that diversity, because in leadership, you learn it's about people. And frankly, if, you got to be a people kind of person, right? You've got to work with people. And the more I can develop skills to do that effectively, the better. So definitely, if you're on the fence, launch in, go all in and experience the opportunity to the fullest.
Awesome. Thank you. Mary, what about you? Why did you decide to apply to the program?
So I'm a scientist at Bayer, for context, and I'm a science fellow there, and I've always tried to help the women scientists at Bayer, women struggle everywhere in the professional world, right? And I'd been thinking about focus for a long time because I was trying to do more in the community. But just like Katie said, I was too busy with too many work responsibilities or home responsibilities or volunteer work. And I pushed it away. And then one of my managers came to me and said, you should really consider this. You're so good at these other things, and you learn a lot too. It would be good. I said, no, I can't do this. I don't have the time. And they said, well, so in a funny sort of way, that's why I wanted to join Will. But why did I join? When I joined, it was funnily because of COVID, right? So he said, you don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to scramble to get, from work anywhere. You can just, it's virtual. So I decided, okay, fine, I will throw my hat into the ring and see what happens. And I'm so glad that I did that.
We're glad you did that too, because you offered, like, I won't say quiet storm, but there was a different spirit about you that is like, I'll hang back, but when I have something to say, like, you're like, whoa, you better listen to what Barry said. And so you always brought something to the conversation. And so, like, that's what everyone does. They bring themselves to the conversation and add richness to it. I don't want to move from this question without asking you, Tara, why did you apply? What did you hope to gain from being involved in Will?
Yeah, well, first of all, I looked at focus when I felt like it was time for me to jump into some continuous learning, because I was a graduate of the Emerging Leaders Program about 5 years ago. So I had such a fantastic experience with the Emerging Leaders Program. I took it actually right before I got into my first management position. But in the same year that I moved to St. Louis full-time from a small town over in Illinois, and it gave me all that I ever wanted. It helped me build my network. It helped me, set my foundation for how to be a good leader. And it got me involved in local St. Louis related issues. So it was just fantastic. So, 5 years later, I had just gotten done planning a wedding, and all of the stress and the fun and project management skills that went into that last year. I thought, okay, now I've got some time to invest in myself. And I have some time where I need to get out and meet new people, because I'm getting stir crazy working from home. I was definitely one of those people in the pandemic where I could not look at the same four walls again every single day. So I went back to the Focus website and found the Women in Leadership program and figured that where I am in my career, that was the perfect fit. And I cannot say more about what this program did for me at the beginning of this year. I mean, it was fantastic. Anyone that wants to ask me any personal questions about it is welcome to, but it was the perfect time for me. I had plenty of time to devote to it, and it was the socialization that I needed and the jumpstart to my 2021 networking, self-improvement, everything and above.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to put this question actually to the whole group. Not everyone necessarily has to respond, but I want to know what surprised you most about Will, right? Because people might have encouraged you to come, or you had been researching it and kind of saying, maybe this year, maybe that year, and then you did it spring of 2021. What surprised you most?
What surprised me most was the personal growth, I think, that I experienced from it. I really enjoyed the thorough analysis of the EQ work, the emotional intelligence work that we did. And, there were some surprises on that report where, I thought I was a pretty good empathetic person. And I really saw that there's some work I need to do in that area, which was interesting because my 16-year-old daughter would say the same. Mom, you could really be a little bit more empathetic, or when I come to you, I'm not always looking for a solution. Sometimes I'm just looking for you to listen. So I started to see just some areas that I thought personally I could work on, and I know in turn would help me professionally. So I think it's that. I would say that was probably the most surprising. Second would be just my ability to show up in the room more often and speak my opinion more. And it is what it is, even if it may be contrary to the group or may not be in line with the consensus. So there were just some I think, actualization, moments, some self epiphanies. And I would say that's what surprised me most. I thought I might learn, most in the professional space, and I did learn a lot there. But the amount of personal growth that I had that has allowed me to be a better mom, a better spouse, a better friend, that was just, I think probably even more valuable. So that's what surprised me.
Candace, I think that from my perspective, I went into it thinking that this was largely a professional development program, whereas we had some sessions where there was not a dry eye on this chat. We got to learn so much about each other, even being in a virtual space. Like, I have some connections with all of these women that were in our group. And for me, I think the biggest growth was the confidence that it gave me. For a long time, I suffer from imposter syndrome. Like, am I good enough to be in this room? And just this program has given me that confidence that what I'm capable of doing. And if I don't have those skills, how to get there. So it was eye-opening for me.
Yeah, I want to add in there too. Sorry, Mary. I think the two things that surprised me the most was that I got so much out of a virtual program, because like I said, I was struggling so much staying at home, not allowed back into my office, that I was a little hesitant to sign up for a long period of time to be in a remote session. But the engagement, that Shayla as our leader and the other members of the cohort were encouraging was fantastic. So that didn't slow us down by any means. I think the other thing I was worried about, because I had done the Emerging Leaders Program, which is male and female, and I work in a male-dominated industry in the IT department, at least. I feel like I'm constantly challenged by, working with people of different genders. And I was afraid that almost we were going to have too much in common because we were all women. I didn't want it to be, we weren't teaching each other anything, but that was completely false. So if anyone fears that they're going to get into this and they're not going to be able to expand because we all have the same viewpoint, that's definitely not true. We are all women, but we all are very, very different. We have different backgrounds and similar goals or different goals. So there was plenty of diversity, even though the program focuses on one gender.
Mary, I know you wanted to share.
I was just going to say, this one thing that surprised me, if I had to pick one thing, is that I was surprised how quickly the women in my cohort bonded and, became vulnerable with each other and shared and, lifted up and supported each other. I did not expect that. I thought this would be like a professional development program. Over the years, I've been through many of those, right? I thought this would be a different flavor of that, maybe with more of a community twist to it, learning twist. But I didn't expect for that intimacy. I didn't expect for that, social, professional and personal connection. And a lot of it is because Sheila helps create that environment. It's almost like a fireside chat you're having, and, I don't know if it would have been different or better if we were in person, but I think we did great as a group, even being virtual. So I wouldn't hesitate for anyone who's, worried about it being virtual or a hybrid. I think you're going to have an amazing experience. I did not expect that. I did not expect to gain like 20 Will sisters. I come from a family, if you can call it that, we have no siblings, right? No siblings. I didn't even have a sorority, when I went to school. So for me to gain another group of women, that are all of different expertise areas and, bring so much variety and diversity to the table and are so friendly and sisterly was something new to me. And I didn't expect that.
Thank you all for sharing. I think what's important and what's being said, and I'll refer back to this pin. So this cohort, like I said, this butterfly theme from day one, like the orientation, we started with the butterfly and the butterfly just stood there. And what I think is important to share with you that, yes, women in leadership is about your professional development. But when you begin to focus on yourself as a person, as a woman, as a leader, and just take that time to reflect and really decide intentionally your next step. You lead from within, you lead yourself first, right? So that there has to be some personal growth and transformation for it to also be realized in your professional life and your civic life. And so they've said it, but want to connect those dots. So the butterfly also became important because if we understand anything about the butterfly, it starts off as one thing, that caterpillar, and then it goes into the chrysalis. And what I shared with the cohort is that the chrysalis means a protected stage of development. And then the butterfly has to, on its own, push out of that chrysalis to spread its wings to get to this transformation. And so Will was that protected stage of development. We were able to create space and hold space for one another. We were able to be vulnerable, like day one. Like people were like, I didn't expect to cry. And I was like, neither did I, right? But we felt so safe in the space and we saw each other, we heard each other. It created a different opportunity for us to just shed the mask, shed the layers, and really take a deep dive and get to know each other because we were getting to know ourselves. So sometimes we need to just center ourselves, and that's not being selfish. That is being an intentional growth and forward-thinking individual. And as women, too often, we spread ourselves thin on everything else and everybody else. But when we look inward and work on ourselves, like the ripple effect of that is so great and beautiful. Awesome. Kenyatta, yes, you have your hand up.
I just want to also say that I know that, Shayla shared what our professions are. Those professions did not hold any weight in our conversations. It was Kenyatta, Katie, Candace, Tara, Mary, and the rest of our sisters. It was not, this is who I am in this moment. We were just a person in this group and we all bonded together regardless of what hat we wore.
And I would just throw in that some of the most surprising things, or one of the most surprising things for me was it kind of the opposite of what Tara was saying, or the flip side, I guess, of what she was saying is that we are all very diverse, but at the same time, there's so much that we are alike. And there's so many things as women that we face together. There's confidence, there's imposter syndrome, there's balance. And to be so diverse, yet to find those commonalities together was one of the most, was one of the biggest takeaways that I had. And I really needed it at that moment to say, it's not just me. It's not just me that feels this way sometimes. We all kind of struggle with this in a different kind of way. So I throw that in too.
I think that Shayla is a big part of that though. I know that Shayla listens to one of the questions, but I feel like you created such an environment for us to not, like in the very beginning, people were apologizing for their cats and their kids, and you were like, no, this is that space where you don't have to apologize for being. And I think that setting that up for us let us bond so quickly because there was no mask, there was no apologies, because I feel like as women, we're always apologizing for just being us. And so I appreciate you for, creating that space for us to grow.
Thank you. And what made it easy to do that is because I firmly believe in what I get to do is what I was born to do. So being able to engage you and encourage you and create space for you, like I'm on cloud 9 every time I'm with women. So, it just like the atmosphere and everything was there and what you brought and you being present. I think that's another piece. I'm going to ask this and we'll see if everyone wants to answer, but this is also the cue. Audience, if you have some questions, some very specific things, let us know. But here's that question. If you had to give a piece of just like a piece of encouragement or advice to the women here, what would you want to share with them? Like you've shared a little bit about your personal stories and some of you have pivoted and grown and done things, but you bring yourself and you have to be present, right? You have to be present to this opportunity in order to get the most out of it. So what advice would you give women as we wrap up this and allow them to begin asking questions? Because I know there's probably some burning questions. Candace, why don't you start us off? Do you have something that you would like to share?
Yeah, well, I would say be open, come open. I would come with my journal, ready to write things that I thought that just were nuggets or, hooked me. Of course, I would write those things down. I learned, some of the major takeaways, get active on LinkedIn. So I became active on LinkedIn. That wasn't a space that I was very active in before. I'm like, okay. And since then I've done that. So now it's one of my kind of routine things to do. For some recommended readings, the memo, I think it was by Minda Harts about, women of color and a seat at the table, that resonated. So I read that. There was another recommended book, My Body Is Not an Apology. I don't know if you guys remember that. I read that on a plane, one day traveling, and that helped me to really get back into my workout and my exercise and just embodying myself, fully. Things I had done back in college and in my early days before all the kids and the, everything, and just, got back in that space and because I had forgotten how much I love to exercise and all of that, my health and wealth. So I just became open and just allowed myself to just be open with the process, ask questions, listen to the other women leaders that would come, and share their stories. And, we heard some phenomenal stories. I mean, my goodness, the people that showed up and how vulnerable they were with their journeys just resonated so much, where I was like, oh my gosh, so we are all in this. We all have our own individual stories. And that was really surprising, I think. We learned so much about each other. Like, you would have thought this, but that wasn't the case. So I just, journaling, showing up, being active, the level, I think Kenyatta mentioned this, the level of flatness in the room. It really didn't matter what roles we had. We kind of forgot about that. We were Candace, Katie, Kenyatta, Mary, we were who we were, first name basis in the room. We didn't call each other by titles or last names or any of that. We are showing up as who we are authentically and engaging in the learning. So that would be my advice to those here.
I want to follow.
Okay, good, Mary. Let's hear from you.
I was just going to follow because I was going to say exactly, almost word to word what you said, Candace. It's so funny. I was just also going to add, be vulnerable, share, be present, be authentically you, be yourself, just share, because I'll tell you, this is not just a course. It's not like a cookie cutter thing that, Shalia tries to replicate each year or each session, semester. Each is an experience. It's a will experience, right? And it's like a different flavor of ice cream, but, slightly different, unique every time, because it is a factor of who all are the cohort. What do the cohort bring? Like, Candace just said, different people will share different experiences, book readings, other things that make the new unique flavor. The speakers that come are always slightly different, right? And they bring their perspectives and experiences. So be open to that. Don't expect something standard cookie cutter. You make what you're a large part of what that cohort becomes and what the experience is. So give of yourself as much as you get is what I would say.
Thank you, Mary. Candace, someone wants you to respond. I did put the memo in, but the other name of the book is too long for me to even remember that. Okay. So answer that, please. One question that we have is someone is asking, how did you choose between will and another focused program, for example, like emerging leaders? So Tara, because you had the experience of emerging leaders 5+ years ago, and then decided to choose will, what might be your advice to, let me see, I think it was Beverly who asked that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad to give my advice, and then I want to hear from one of the others that didn't do emerging leaders, because I'm definitely one of those people that sees it as a stepping stone. So I think that emerging leaders was the first type, that was the first type of continuous learning that I did like this, where you get together with a cohort and you're together for multiple months. You know, I got my graduate degree, so that's similar to that. So I got my graduate degree first, my MBA, and then I took about a year off from my continuous learning, you know, in person, and then I did the Emerging Leaders Program. I'm a strong believer that that really helped prepare me for women in leadership. And as far as my career goes, I took the Emerging Leaders Program about a year before I got my first people management role. So for me, that's what made sense in my brain. And I've been leading people for about 5 years in my professional career before I took the Women in Leadership Program. So I kind of looked at it as a mirror in my continuous learning to where I was in my career. And fun fact, while I was doing Women in Leadership, my husband was actually doing Emerging Leaders. So I don't think it's necessarily a time in your personal life that you have to do one or the other, and it doesn't always go by age. I know there is an age limit in Emerging Leaders, so that's something to think about, is that you can grow out of being able to apply for the Emerging Leaders Program. So those were some of the things that I took into account. Any of you other ladies that maybe didn't do the Emerging Leaders Program, why you did Women in Leadership instead?
Women in leadership stuck out to me because of where I was. So Yemi is right. Some people will start in one job and end in another. I was one of those people who started in one job and ended in another. The business that I was in was, male heavy. And so there was not a lot of development for women. So Women in Leadership spoke out to me because I wanted to get better as a woman leader. And since taking the program, I feel like not only am I a better woman leader, but I'm learning to reach back and pull other women with me and take them along with me. And teaching them that they have to reach back and grab someone else and bring them with them. So Women in Leadership, that's why I chose that one, because I felt like I needed to develop in that area.
Awesome. Here's what I want to do. I know there's a couple of questions. I started responding to some of them, but I'm gonna, let me see if there's another one. I think we actually can get some of those other questions. Like one is, and maybe we shift this into the breakout. So Kayla, get ready to move us there, because I still want people to have this micro experience with a smaller group so that you actually get to talk with one of the alum and have that conversation. But someone said, like, in hindsight, what would you have done differently to get, to like better the experience? So I want you to hold the thought. And when you go into the breakout, share a little bit more about, looking back, here's what I may do differently, or maybe you wouldn't do anything differently, or how you talk about how to engage. Because someone messaged me and said, do you stay engaged after the cohort? Yes, some of it's initiated by the cohort, some of it's initiated by focus. And so it is, because you're in community, now you have a new sisterhood of friends and you want to stay in touch with your friends. So that's that. So Kayla, why don't you do this? Why don't you break us out into breakout rooms? Each of the rooms will be, led by one of us here. And then we can say hello, ask a few more questions in the breakout, and then come back just so that I can give you one kind of last parting note. So thank you all. The final thing that I want to share with you about the program is that we are in the application, we're in open enrollment basically right now. The application for the spring 2022 deadline or application is December the 10th. What happens with our program is that everyone that applies is invited to go through selection day. So it's not like if I'm selected, then whatever. Everyone who applies goes through selection day, and selection day is how we make the decision about who is invited to participate. And that is done by Will Alumni. So people like myself and the ones that came to our roundtable today, they are the ones that will interview you and talk to you about why you wanted to apply, what you hope to give, what you hope to gain. And then we make a decision and extend invitations to participate. You're also maybe wondering, hey, the tuition is like a lot. It is worth it in value. I'll just say that to you. However, if you're like, is there scholarships? Yes, there are partial scholarships available. And so you can find that information on the website. We ask you to apply once you're invited. Then it's like you're already someone who is willing to make the commitment. Now you can ask for a scholarship. Again, it's limited. We typically don't give full scholarship. And it really just depends on the funding partner and some of the criteria that we've established with them. And it's done by a case-by-case basis. And finally, many employers do support our participants in this growth and development opportunity. So if you're like, the little sticker shock, ask your employer. And if you're like, hey, how do I do that? We've got some talking points. We've got some information that we can share just so that you can advocate for yourself and ask for their support. Like I said, it's such a rich experience for you personally and professionally. And when you're able to bring what you're learning to the workplace, to the environment, to your team, you're able to share that learning out. And so it is a great investment, not only in you, but for your company to invest in you. I'm seeing some things in the chat. I'm going to try to grab them really quick. While I'm doing that, Kenyatta, Mary, Tara, Katie, Candace, any like final remark that you'd like to give to the audience before we wrap this up in like the next 2 minutes? I'm going to just double check the chat and make sure I'm not missing anybody.
I'll just say there's never enough time, to connect with women in this way. And so many of us, all of us, have put our contact information in the chat. So I'll speak on behalf of us because I'm confident that we all would be willing to connect outside of this forum. Feel free to connect and continue the conversation.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in and share one last piece of information or advice?
Sometimes you have to take that risk. I am one of the people who received scholarship, and I took that risk. It was money well spent, I'll say that.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to, Lisa, I'm looking for your question. Did you put one in the chat for me? Are you still here?
I am. I actually just noted that the other ladies seem to very well cover my questions. Maybe we're already on the same wavelength. That's really great. I'm very interested in the application process, and we'll just zoom from there.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just want to, as we're closing up, if there's additional questions, feel free to reach out to me. Yes, on LinkedIn, Shalia Ford, you got it right there. There's not too many Shailas out there, so hopefully you'll be able to find me. You'll remember my face. If you want to have a one-on-one or a quick virtual call, feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put my email in the chat so that you can email me, but it's also on all of the information. I'm happy to have conversations. Here's the deal. I love this program, but I'm also about you being in the right fit for you in this season. And if Will is not it, I'm not going to try to encourage you to do it. I'm either going to say, press pause, consider something else we have, or consider an outside resource that I know about. I am so invested in women being all that they can be in this season, that if this is not a right fit, I'm not going to bullshit you and try to make you do this. I want you to come because you are curious, you're interested, and you're ready to commit to yourself. Because like the women in class 73 know, it's your time, but you have to declare it and you have to want it. And so if you want it, I'm on the journey with you. If this is not the time, that's okay too. I don't know how many women who said, I've watched this program for like 3 or 4 years before I like pulled the trigger. You don't have to wait that long if you don't want to. But if you need to, that's okay too. So connect with me, shoot me an email. Happy to have a call, set up a Zoom or just regular old telephone call, answer any more questions that you might have, or connect you with other ambassadors of our program so that you can have a one-on-one with them and learn about their personal experience if there's still more questions that you have. So ladies, thank you so much for sharing your lunch hour with us. It was wonderful to see your faces. I look forward to seeing your applications or hearing from you. And I just hope that you have a blessed rest of the day, that it is positive and productive, and that you can keep shining and be your best self. So take care.